welcome in, and you are sitting courtside with Karli Bell. Joining me this week, though, is one of my favorite people in Chicago. He's got the voice of a god and is one of the voices of the Chicago Sky in Jason Ross Jr. Jason, it's so good to do this with you again, my guy. I love it. I love it so much.
Opening weekend, I get to chat with Karli Bell herself. We're ringing the bell. It's gonna be phenomenal. I love it.
I know we have to find a way to insert. I know I got to get something going here. So let's talk about that opening weekend. Let's go through the scores. So Friday, Mystics surprised a lot of people, beating Atlanta 94-90. Minnesota dominating Dallas 99-84. LA also in the domination reign, 84-67 over the Golden State Valkyries. Saturday, Liberty in their championship banner raising ceremony win over the Aces 92-78. Mercury put the hammer down on the Seattle Storm 81-59. Fever beat the Sky 93-58 in just a blowout game that I don't think anyone really anticipated. And then on Sunday, Mystics starting the season 2-0 with their 90-85 win over the Sun. And then as we're recording this, the Lynx Sparks game is in progress. So if that finishes while we're recording, we'll give a little update on that. But first, Jason, just hearing those scores, watching that opening weekend, what was the biggest thing that kind of, one, I'm happy that Hoops is back, but what's the biggest thing that kind of has stuck out to you in this opening weekend?
So as we're recording, Washington Mystics are atop the WNBA standings here at 2-0, and they've been really impressive. Their two rookies, Sonia Citron, and we just talked about it, her and Kiki Iriafen with the double-double today, by the way, 17 and 14, super impressive. Citron, I think they've combined for over 30 points together in each of these first two games now. Don't have Georgia Amor. So that's, for me, kind of like, if there's two rookie faces, of course, Paige Becker's debut, we're not going to skip over that.
No,
but if there's two rookie faces showcasing they're going to be the future faces of a franchise right now, we're seeing that pretty early on with Washington. And again, 2-0 with our guy Sydney at the helm there. So shout out to him. And it's been...
And also Emery Vatansever to Chicago. There's some Chicago ties happening in Washington as well.
Absolutely. And then, Minnesota Lynx, talked about the game against Dallas. I think it was fitting Paige Becker scored the first bucket of that game to kick things off in Dallas. The first bucket of many, and what's going to be an awesome career, legendary career for her in Dallas. It's a very different Dallas team. Arike led them in scoring, but Minnesota kind of ended up taking that game over in the second half behind 34 from Nafisa Collier, who was the runner-up MVP a season ago. Was that a statement saying, it's mine this year? Who knows? She's one of my favorite people in this league, one of the most fun players to watch in this league. So dominant, something to her game every year. And Minnesota, this is a group that, for me, we got to watch them in the preseason call in the Sky Games. And they got their entire starting five back from last year. Didn't have Kayla McBride in that opener, but they get her back. That's 15 points per game right there. And the energy of a Courtney Williams, Anna Smith, them being back, the scoring and defense as well. Defensive player of the year, Nafisa Collier, can't leave that out of the mix. It's a really good Minnesota team. The GOAT coaching, Cheryl Reeve, of course. And then, we just had some fun games to kick things off. It was a lopsided game, but you had Golden State's season opener. When I was hearing you say the Golden State Valkyries, is that's pretty cool. We have a new team now. We got two more coming here in Portland and Toronto. I'm rambling right now because I love this league so much, but that was their venue and the purple court and the fans at Chase Center. LC Plum, how about, so Collier puts up 34 and then Plum comes right back and says, I want to put up 37. So interesting start for LA there. No Cam Brink for a little longer here, unfortunately, but if they get her back and you wonder does she start? Does Azurá Stevens go to the bench? Erica Hamby's coming off a phenomenal season, breakout year for her. So I'm curious to see, could LA sneak up on some people? I don't know. I don't think Kelsey Plum's going to put up 37 every game, but could they sneak up on some people? Is that going to be a tough out every night? And then I know we're going to get into the Sky, of course, going up against the Fever. And New York looks like New York. The Aces look like the Aces. So I think the heavyweights look like the heavyweights. And I think Indiana's making a case have they joined the heavyweights with these additions they have now? I think the Chicago Sky, that isn't what we're going to see the rest of the way. Like Tyler Marsh said, this game isn't going to define us. There's a lot to work on, a lot to get better at. I think it's pretty evident, though, as to what they can improve on. I know we're going to dip into that, but some long-winded opening weekend thoughts for you there, Karli.
Well, look, man, we're going to fully get into the rest of the WNBA later in the show, but Jason just teeing everything up right now. Let's get into that Sky Fever game. I think we were texting in the group chat. I don't think any of us expected that type of blowout to happen. I thought, especially after how closely they played each other last year, granted, two completely different teams in 2024 than in 2025. But I think everything now just looks so different. And I've said it all throughout this podcast and all offseason that the Indiana Fever absolutely won the offseason. Everyone was talking about DeWanna Bonner, but I think somebody who really solidified her signing is Natasha Howard. She looked unbelievable for Indiana, but we're obviously here to mostly talk about this guy. So initial thoughts though, Jason, and I, you and I both have similar views on basketball, but I always like picking your brain. What are things that kind of stuck out to you? Let's start in just that opening quarter, because for me, I believe what we saw in that first quarter is going to be indicative of what the Sky are going to be like all season. Outside of the missed threes, the 11 threes, only converting on one of them, I feel like they started to get ahead of themselves, started to get in their head mentally because the shots aren't falling. So now you're just trying to chuck things up to start just attacking the deficit. But I will say what I appreciated a lot and what I saw out of that game was a great ball movement, the transitional game in that first quarter. And frankly, it was really only in that first quarter for the Chicago Sky was really dominant, moving the ball up the floor quickly. And it was everybody, not just Courtney Vandersloot or Ariel Atkins. You saw Angel bringing the ball up. You saw Kamilla sometimes bring the ball up. It was a good first quarter. And then things just started to go awry. So for you, what were some of the positives that you saw out of the Sky? There were a lot of negatives, and we'll get into those. But what are some of the positives that you saw out of what the Sky could do, and also Tyler Marsh as a head coach?
First off, Karli, I love picking your brain. But, I think, like you said, that first quarter felt similar to, and you've played this game, that the drill you do in practice where, you're going up and down the floor. I don't want to call it like a three-person weave, but you don't want the ball to touch the floor, and you're just snapping it up the floor all the way down the length of the court. And you may have a dribble or two in there, but for me, it was like it looked similar to that, where we're going to get it up and down the floor and do it kind of quickly, but not rushed. And I think the goal is to not be rushed. It became rushed, unfortunately. But I think the goal of that is to get the ball up the floor, but don't do it in a rushed fashion and take the best shot you can, which feels different than the pace last year. And then the three-point shooting, different than the team last year that took the fewest amount of threes in the WNBA. And you're seeing that even though they didn't go down, I think they will go down. And they did go down in the preseason when you add players like, Rachel Bannon comes back, but you add Beck Allen and Kia Nurse, and these three-point shots, percentage-wise, they're going to start to fall. And Angel Reese steps back, and she can maybe hit a few more now as well. That's another dynamic of pulling that defense out. I'm excited to see that as she and Kamilla continue to expand their respective range shooting-wise. So for me as well, something else that was a positive was Angel at the top of the key and then driving into the lane under her own volition, under her own aggression, doing that with a will, with a certain purpose about it. That was really fun to see. And she's got finishing moves around the rim. She can do it with both hands. I think that is something that's going to keep expanding. I'd love to see her confidence continue to grow there in addition to that outside shot, which will continue to happen with reps. So I thought those were positives. I thought like you said, the identity of the offense, even though the offense didn't click from a scoring standpoint, it's there. For me, now building upon it, I'd love to see the pick and roll game. We saw glimpses of it in the preseason. Get Kamilla Carodo and Courtney Vandersloot. Sloot is a legend, of course, and she's the franchise's all-time leader in assists for a reason. He's going to dish out a lot for these young bigs. So for me, credit to Indiana's ball pressure, as Tyler Marsh said after the game, on stopping that quickly. Got to give some, kudos there. They added some length defensively that's going to be legit this year. And I think that was an emphasis for them in the offseason. So finding ways to get into the pick and roll game more when you've got these shooters outside is going to be how the Sky build upon that first quarter, like you said.
Yeah, the pick and roll game was there in that first quarter. And then, you also saw it in the high-low game with Kamilla and Angel. You had you had Angel high and Kamilla, doing a pick and rolling down low. It was there. The problem was, and this is something that I really hope we unfortunately kind of saw this a little bit last year, where when the shots start to not fall, the heads start falling. And you saw that. You saw the mental taxation that the lack of offensive efficiency was having. And the person that I kind of saw it out of more than anybody, at least from, I'm watching it on television, as were you. I was not in Indiana. But what I saw more than anything was Courtney Vandersloot hanging her head. And I think it was more frustration that the thing was she was actually taking good shots. And we're going to go into the shot chart here in a minute. The shots were actually decent takes. It's the ball didn't want to go through the net. And I really want to see that mentality and that frustration leave. It's also game one. And as you said, Tyler March said it after the game, that he doesn't want, this game is not going to define their season. I promise you that. That's what he said, verbatim quote. And I think he's right. I think it's game one of the longest WNBA season that's ever existed with 44 games. But I'm intrigued to see the growth out of the offense, because the identity is there. And you and I both saw it in the preseason. It's there. It just wasn't executed, or the shot just wasn't falling. It's a combination of both. Now, on a defensive level, that needs work. That needs work. That needs a lot of work. And you saw players not getting back fast enough. Some players are just getting cooked. And this is the one thing I'll give Caitlin Clark this credit. She was cooking against Courtney Vandersloot, cooking against a lot of those guards. The handles have gotten a lot sharper for her to get those assists into Aaliyah Boston. So the defense does need to get there. There were also a lot of missed recoveries inside. And the one thing I think what Indiana did is they watched that second preseason game that the Sky played against the Lynx, where Minnesota was able to stretch and spread the Chicago defense out. And that's something that's going to be a problem if that continues, But what are your thoughts defensively? I mean, the biggest thing for me, this is going to be a work in progress. It's not going to get fixed in one game, one practice. This is something that I think is going to take some time.
No, that's a really good point on the second preseason game. Our good friend Shimmy Miller pointed that out during the game, that teams, that Minnesota in particular in that one, were trying to pull out the bigs, and then that's how you got some more open space on the floor. They translated that to threes. Indiana translated that to threes. I thought it was one of the interesting points of the game. Aaliyah Boston was maybe an underrated aspect of that performance for Indiana. She was fantastic, and she was fantastic in particular when the Sky didn't have Cardoso and Reese on the floor, and the way that she really attacked, the way that she was able to, cut to the basket, receive good passes. I thought Indiana's cutting was great, but being more disciplined on ball screens and the pick and roll action, the ball screen action is such a key part of this league, as we know. So I think being able to stick with whoever's rolling and getting back on defense first and foremost, going to be really important, even if it's just someone being back to showcase that you can't get in the lane against us that quickly. That's going to be important. And then, like you said, that's kind of getting back to those fundamentals. But when you have a player like an Aaliyah Boston, does at least one of them, Kamilla Carodo or Angel Reese, do they need to be on the floor out there with Elizabeth Williams when you have dominant bigs like that in this league? And you go up against some dominant bigs like that. We're going to see it on May 22nd when New York comes to town, when you got Jonquel Jones and MVPs, Reese, Brandon Stewart. So this is going to be a tough matchup against New York next. And I'll be curious to see lineup-wise, defensively, how we try to match up against those bigs. And New York's like an all-star team, right? You have these other players on the floor, Sabrina Ionescu. We saw what Cloud did in her debut. So it's going to be a tough task. But how does Tyler Marsh match up against them? Who needs to stay on the floor? Because we have elite shot blockers. We do. Cardoso and Reese and Williams. We have the defensive front court pieces to stop what Aaliyah Boston did. But how do you make that happen? That's what I'll be curious to see moving forward. What adjustments need to be made so that doesn't happen again?
That's a really good point about the lineup rotations, because there were times where I was like, wait, you don't have Kamilla or Angel on the floor? Like, there's size there that you just take anything out. just from a size perspective. Yes, Elizabeth Williams is 6'3". Angel is 6'4". Kamilla is 6'7". Angel has a very long wingspan. Kamilla also a very long wingspan. Like when you pull that length out, I understand they cannot play 40 minutes, nor should they, nor should any player really. I'm all about getting players some breath or some Gatorade every now and then. But like, it's something where I'm intrigued to see if the lineup rotations do change. You also made a great point about Aaliyah Boston. Very sleeper, very quiet but loud performance for Indiana. And I'm also going to say this, her growth from last year to this year is phenomenal. Like I think she got so much stronger. She just looks stronger. And she also, what some people kind of came at her for last year was footwork. I feel like her footwork this year has gotten a lot more concise, a lot just cleaner and quicker. I think she's a really great big. I think she's going to do really phenomenal things in this league. I want to get into just a small thing here because I like shot charts. Let's look into the shot chart. All right, Jason. So here's the shot chart that we see out of the sky. Obviously, if you just look Sky versus Fever, there's a lot of green for the Fever. 35 of 75, 46% shooting from the floor. Just an unreal shooting day for the Fever. Also, that a lot of green inside in that restricted area. And even in this mid-range, they just were able to take advantage of almost everywhere on the court. But we're here to talk Sky, right? This, I think, will be the most red that we see on a Chicago Sky shot chart all season. Is this. That perimeter shooting. Look, I'm all here for seeing more shots being taken. My issue more so in this game were when the threes were taken. Yep. There were times where in transition, it was at 20 seconds in the shot clock, I'm going to just pull a three when there's a wide open driving lane. Or there were times where you had about 12 seconds left on the shot clock. And if you just did maybe one more screen or you did some baseline movement, you would have created another opportunity or the space to take a better shot. There were a lot of threes that there were a lot of threes that were good looks, but there were a lot of threes that I feel that were rushed and forced because when the gap between the scores started to grow more and more and more, the Sky started to become rushed offensively. They just wanted to chip away. And Coach Marsh said it after the game too. You tried to chip away at the deficit all in one possession and you can't do that. And I think this was a learning curve for the Chicago Sky. But when you look at the shot chart, Jason, what's like the biggest thing that stands out to you?
I agree, Karli. And that happened at points when it was just a 10-point game, 12-point game.
Yeah.
And, trying to crack it to get within single digits felt unnecessary at times. I know exactly which point of the game you're talking about. And for me as well, the threes weren't taken that way when we were getting hyped up about it during the preseason games. The threes were taken that way after as many as 4 or 5 passes on the possession. And it was really crisp. It was really fluid. That's what I enjoyed about watching the Sky calling those preseason games. As much as we do want to take more threes this year in the flow of the offense, I'd also love for us to not lose the points in the paint battle 48-26. That can happen for any basketball team and to win a game. So
very true.
No, yeah, that can't happen to no matter how many threes you want to take. That can't happen for any team in this league. So that needs to be more efficient. I think it will be, like you said. It felt like there was a lid on the basket. I think that the three-point shooting will naturally improve because you have three-point shooters who show you the percentage that it's going to get better. Rachel Banham, Rebecca Allen. I think Courtney Vandersloot's going to have a much better days, plural, moving forward. So that is just going to improve. I think Kamilla Carodo will get more involved in the offense, the pick and roll game. It's going to improve. It's going to improve. So we won't freak out at this shot chart.
No, but you bring up Kamilla Carodo.
Yeah.
And that was all she took.
Yeah,
9 shots.
Yeah.
I want to see more shot attempts from Kamilla. I want to see more feeds inside to her. There were times where she was open inside, but then they were like, we're going to take the rushed 3 instead. So I hope she gets incorporated more. I also believe this will not be the case for Kamilla in her inside shooting. Last year in the second half of the season, she was shooting upwards of 66%. So I think I don't like chalking it all up to a poor shooting day because there was shot selection and some defensive miscues and missed recoveries that absolutely need to be worked on. But I was really surprised that she was not being fed more, especially when you're 6'7". I'm sorry, you're 6'7". Take advantage of it. But there's one other person that you brought up, Courtney Vandersloot. Another shot chart that I don't think we're ever going to see like this. And I'm going to say this, I think historically, I don't think we've ever seen this red of a shot chart.
No, no. And the thing is, she's always going to impact the game in a different way outside of this shooting, but it's going to get back. It's going to improve. And like you said, this is a legend of the game. I think for me, I'm going to look for her in that mid-range game.
Yeah,
Often
only a couple.
that area that you got right now in the mouse there. I think that if she were to at times be a little selfish on the pick and roll, if she's keeping it and some space opens up to take those mid-range jumpers, I think she's always a threat there. But of course, most dynamic of a threat when it comes to dishing those dimes that we love to see and have loved to see for years. Guy's all-time leader in assists. Speaking of shooting, little shout out to she and her wife, Allie Quigley, on some exciting news that they announced last week on Mother's Day. If we had Allie Quigley in the Sky uniform, still one of my all-time favorite players, shot chart would look, I think it'd look a little better. Go back and watch Vandersloot Quigley highlights. It's just nostalgic. You got to love it. Shooting that goes, I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. They're the best.
It's also just a cool, you can't write a better story. You meet your wife on the team that you win a championship on, and then the year that you come back to Chicago, you have a baby together. Like, come on, like you can't write a better story than that. There's one other person I want to highlight that did a lot for the Sky in ways that I don't think people understand. And that's Rebecca Allen, because she was kind of the only person whose mid-range was actually falling. Like she had the 1-3 outside, but she was one of the only people that was getting great spacing inside. Granted, only 2 shots here and then 2 shots in the restricted area. But what she was able to do in drawing the Indiana defense to her for her to do the kick out where it would sometimes hit, or if they didn't come to her, she would take this shot right at the charity stripe. I think she's going to be a lot more impactful. I also believe Kia Nurse, if she was able to knock down some of those threes, I think she would have been really, really impactful too. But I really think Rebecca Allen and her size, and physicality and what her game brings in regards to what the defenders have to respect in her is going to be pretty vital. But I mean, if we're going back to that full shot chart, I think you and I both agree this will probably be there. You see it every WNBA season that there's always one game that each team has where you see it and you're like, what? And I think that will be this game for the Sky.
There was another one as well, Phoenix and Seattle, 81-59 game that jumped out like that. Like you said, it's going to be the longest season ever, 44 games. So you may have a couple of these dropped in there, but I think you can't overreact to it. I think they're going to get back in the gym. They know what they need to improve on and gear up for New York. It's a challenging schedule to begin the season here. There's no doubt about that. It's a challenging league in general, and it is night after night after night. And that is why we love this league, because it's going to be competitive every single day, and you got to be ready to play. I think just to piggyback off Rebecca Allen there, another note on her, for me, the most underrated aspect of her acquisition for this team is the length she brings defensively on the perimeter. I'm excited to see what kind of minutes and who she's matched up against, because I think you can put her up against players like, say, a Caitlin Clark or, a Kelsey Mitchell. Mitchell was also phenomenal yesterday.
Oh, my.
He was just flying up and down the floor. But first and foremost, that fundamental of getting back on defense, like you said earlier, that's going to be at the heart of it, because you're going to go up against some fast teams in this league.
And it's going to just be a lot. So, obviously this was the shot chart. I have a feeling I'm probably going to go do these almost every single week, because I enjoy being able to showcase, from a statistical standpoint, what fans sometimes see. Because when you watch a game, it's one thing, but then when you go back and you see where all the shots were and you're able to look at it as a cohesive unit, as a picture, it can do a lot. Okay, so if we're heading into that New York game, we talk obviously about defense. Shots also need to fall. Home opener for the Sky. They have a real tough stretch to open the season. in playing Indiana, New York, and then I think they play New York again, and like in the Wings. Like it's a tough open, but if you had to pinpoint one thing that you want to see the Sky improve on in their home opener, what would that be?
I would say for me, ball movement on offense and doing that in if it needs to be, if it's an open door where you have an opportunity to push the pace, doing so, but ball movement to look for a deliberate and the best shot possible. I think our kind of resounding sentiment after that game was that fell off a little too fast, and looking for that to improve, and then the transition defense as well in this league. I think that has to get better. So the transition defense got to force New York into half court sets, because for me the most glaring part of New York's season opener was you have the legends, the all-stars down low, and that front court duo of Stewie and Jonquel Jones, and Sabrina's shot wasn't really falling. She was 3 of 12 at one point, I think, but her shot wasn't falling, but she looked poised. She's gotten so much better with if her shot isn't falling, she's still impacting the game. But it was Natasha Cloud and that acquisition that was the most glaring for me, that this team got better. And then you add Maureen Johannes back into the mix off the bench. You think about Leonie Fibish, who is a phenomenal player, an older second-year player in this league. I think this team may have gotten better. And for me, that's because of Cloud and what she brings to the table. And she is just running, Karli. She is zipping up and down the floor. You got to get back. It works. But then
it's like Sonic the Hedgehog out there running. It's
Hedgehog.
It's crazy.
She's turning it on the defensive end and turning it into offense.
Exactly. You took the words out of my mouth with the transitional defense. I think that's got to be the biggest thing that needs to be resolved, because if you can't create the stops to turn into your own runs, then it's going to be a repeat all over again of what that Indiana game is. Before we get into the W, got to do a little plug here. Make sure you follow us at Courtside KB on all platforms. That's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky. Even got a Threads for y'all, because I'm like, you know what? I know Twitter can be a place. So I was like, we're going to just go there. Also, if you're a big reader and you love reading, we have a website that's for free, giving you all things Sky and WNBA. That's courtsidewithkarlibell.com. And then on top of that, if you're watching us on our YouTube channel, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Jason hopefully will come back many a time here to talk things Sky, along with other guests that will come through. And then Patreon starts this week, ladies and gents. This week, Courtside with Karli Bell on Patreon. 2 tiers. Zone tier 3 means you want to support the podcast. You know what? I appreciate you. You'll get it early, and that's about it. That's all you're getting. And you know what? If you want to give me the $3 a month for that, I support you. But if you do that man-to-man tier for $6, that's where you get that Patreon exclusive content once a week, and it will be on Thursdays, and it will be previewing the upcoming week, along with maybe picking a couple topics that we couldn't get into in this episode, because I'm not trying to talk your ears off for 45 minutes to an hour. And also, we all have other things to be doing. So make sure you follow us at Courtside KB on all platforms. Like, follow, subscribe on our YouTube channel, courtsidewithkarlibell.com. And you can find us on Amazon, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. I think that's the fastest promotion I've ever done, Jason. I'm going to just give myself
I love it.
Appreciate it.
The inflections are rising. The point was felt.
I'm just taking after you. How you call games, Jason. That's all I'm doing. Just taking after you with your lovely movements.
Again, you're the only Twitter account I check.
So before we wrap things up here, let's look at the whole WNBA as a league. We were kind of talking about it beforehand, but I want to first chat a little bit about 2 things first. New York's banner ceremony, the whole shindig, the whole gig, the whole parade, the rah-rah of it all, I thought was really cool. I thought they did it really well. It was executed really well. And those rings, did you see those rings, Jason?
Fun facts on the rings, Karli Bell. So there were 28 stones to represent the 28 years of the Liberty.
Oh, I love that.
I
love that. Ooh.
Yeah.
See, the rings have just gotten better as the league has expanded. Let's get a shiny. Those things were huge on some of those, on all of those girls' hands. It was huge. I'm all here for it. And then we kind of talked about it a little bit. Golden State Valkyries inaugural game at the home court. That court was sick. The
Fire.
court is
The
huge.
purple is legit. I love a purple logo with the black in there too.
I love
Yeah,
it.
Chase Center was rocking. I mean, I love this growth of course, Northern California. We're going to add Portland pretty soon. You're going to have some fun rivalries up in that part of the country between Portland and Seattle and Golden State. Make the
Mhm,
travel really easy for those teams.
mhm.
It's a fun time to be a part of this league. Toronto as well, and I just really thought it was a cool vibe, cool atmosphere. They had some awesome season, ticket sales during preseason too. It
Yeah.
looked really lit. We mentioned Kelsey Plum kind of spoiled the party there with her 37 points, but it was a fun time. At one point, Julie Vanloo was hyping up the crowd, and it was a super cool scene.
Love it.
I'm excited. I'm definitely gonna be there when Golden State comes to Chicago this year, just to kind of feel out just seeing a new team in this
Yeah,
league.
absolutely. I'm excited to, see a new team in person. When you watch it on television, it's so different than when you watch it in person. You and I both know that. It's just a different energy, a different feel than what you see through a screen. I was very impressed by what the Valkyries were able to do in 1 year, putting together a phenomenal court. It looked like a great fan experience, also putting a team together that historically expansion teams just don't do well. So the fact that they were able to at least put a decent product on the floor that was actually relatively competitive until around the third quarter. But to see that is a great start. It's only upwards from here for Golden State. Phenomenal things to see. All right. Your favorite rookie. We were kind of talking about it a little bit, and we kind of have similar things here. But your favorite rookie performance from the opening weekend of what we've been able to see.
Karli Bell, we're always on the same vibe. We're ringing the bell together, and I think we're on the same bell vibe for this one. So, Washington, again, shout out to our guy, Sidney Johnson, on what they're doing so far as we record this. Again, they're 2-0 and at the top of the WNBA standings. And their two notable rookies, Sonia Citron and Kiki Iriafen, have been phenomenal. Kiki putting up her first career double-double today against Connecticut and a come from behind win, 17 points, 14 boards. She was outstanding. And then Sonia has had double figures scoring wise in each of her first two games as well. I loved something you tweeted out, by the way. You're the only Twitter account I check. I'm going to keep saying that. So you put out that the body control when she's diving to the rim feels akin to a Kalia Copper. And I thought that was a great comparison based on what we saw her do in the opener. And both of them, for me, have that. They both, I know I'm giving you kind of a two-player answer here on favorite rookie, but both run the floor, both can move off the dribble, both have great body control. They don't even have Aaliyah Edwards right now. She's coming off an excellent rookie year. She's going to be really good this year. Shakira Austin's day was cut short today. They're going to eventually get her fully back. And then this team, for me, maybe not only surprising rookies, but could they be a sleeper? I question maybe the guard depth a little bit. I like Brittany Sykes had a phenomenal day today. She was awesome actually today. She was awesome. But does that continue with Georgia Amor's injured? This would be the other element to that rookie trio they have, really. And then you've got Jade Melvin, who I think is a solid player, but can you continue to do that? The front court depth for me is legit. This is very legit front court depth. Former Sky, Stephanie Dolson, down there is a veteran as well. So the front court depth is legit for me for Washington. So could they be not only be the sleeper in terms of rookie performances? I know we're going to talk a lot about Paige Beckers. Can't not talk about Paige. Phenomenal.
Absolutely.
She scored the first bucket of that Dallas Minnesota game, had some dimes as well. Her career's she's going to keep going, getting better and better. But for me, the rookies that have stood out so far are the dynamic duo in the nation's capital.
Sonia, I always knew she was going to have her skill was going to translate pretty easily to
You
the
were talking
W
you were talking about her in our group chat
for
when she was out
months.
for a minute. Yeah.
For months. I just knew she was somebody that was wherever she landed, she was going to be real special. And then seeing her play at that, she just has a fearlessness. That whole Washington team is playing real fearless right now.
Really?
I may have
Playoffs?
grossly. Well, hold on. It's the opening. The fearlessness that Washington is playing with is something I'm really floored by. They kind of know, like, I don't want to say that they know that they're being underestimated, because if you look at all the preseason rankings, power rankings, mine included, everybody had them finishing 11th or 12th. somewhere in there just because they are so young. And you bring up a great point with their backcourt. You got Slim, Brittany Sykes, unbelievable. But yeah, where is that going to be consistent? And who do you have behind her that can pick up that slack? I don't know if that consistency is going to be there come July, August. But we're here to talk rookies. And Kiki and Sonia really, really, really surprised me in those first 2 games. But we got to obviously talk about that number in Paige Beckers. I love that she scored the first point of the game against her home state team. Like, it's a cool story. I love it. I have been the biggest Paige Beckers fan since she was 14, 15 years old when that first hoop mixtape came out on Twitter. And I saw how she played and I was like, okay, I'm watching a number 1 pick. That's what I'm watching. She's so talented. I think what people don't give her credit for enough is her court vision. Because for her to be able to make those dimes and get those assists, and not only be able to get the assist, but to create the space to get the assist, create the space to get the shot, that comes with court vision and IQ, obviously. But if you're a guard, especially a point guard, that IQ should be the highest on the court. What she's able to see is something I don't think anyone, I don't want to say they underestimated it, but I don't think anyone saw it was going to be that clear in game 1. Dallas, the biggest problem that I have with Dallas is you have so many big names on that team. You got Dejanay, you have Nalissa, you have Rike, obviously, and you have Paige Beckers, and they also have, Tierra McCown. They have a lot of big names on there. So how are you going to, as a head coach, you have to find a way to satisfy those big names and make something flow together. And that was the biggest issue in that opening game against Minnesota. But she just delighted me. I love how she plays. But we could just hype up Paige Beckers 45 minutes. But what did you really see out of her, Jason?
I'm going to do a little mic drop here. I think I'm going to predict a triple-double in her first 20 games.
Okay, all right. We're getting the date now. Okay, so
I could drop it. Still is. I gotta do that.
May 17th, we put this out. Jason is saying Paige is putting out a triple-double in the first 20 games. Okay, all right, Jason.
I'm coming back on the pod when it happens, Karli. I'm
calling you up. Jason, we got to bring it.
I'll be so full of myself that I won't even prep before that podcast. That'll be how full of myself I'll be if it happens.
You'll just come on and we're not even going to get into skies. I'm going to just hit record and Jason's going to be like, I called it. I called it. That's all he's going to be doing.
We'll just play back that clip.
Yeah, honestly, on repeat.
I think, like you said, it was poetic, that first bucket against her team that she grew up watching win titles and helped inspire her to become as good of a player as she is and will continue to grow into.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. I think just continuing to watch the dynamic of her and Arike develop. For me, recent years, of course, narrative with Dallas is that, Arike's been the player who's had the ball in her hands for the most part of the shot clock. Now, how do you kind of evenly distribute that? I like Dejanay Carrington as well coming over. She looked really good. She had really good spurts in that game. Then, of course, her defense. I think Paige Beckers, her length is underrated. She crashes the glass. She defends. She's not afraid to get physical, which is a fun part of watching her. And then the distribution is something that's going to be stuff of legends as her career rolls on. But I think it's only up from here. I think it's a triple-double in her first 20 games.
Triple-double in her first 20 games. He's calling it now. All right. So obviously there's the standings and everything. Last thing before I let you go here, Jason. Way too early. Way too early. Way, way, way too early. Who do you have in the WNBA Finals?
Whoa. On the spot.
On the spot. So for me, I see it being a rematch between Minnesota and New York.
Okay.
That's what I see. But I see Minnesota coming out on top.
I can't go with the same answer as you.
You can if you believe that. But for right now, that's what I have.
I do genuinely believe Minnesota has a serious shot of getting back there. I love their continuity coming back. New York made a statement on Saturday. But then you have this Aces team that's in a position that's different than they have been in the last couple of years because they were defending titles. But now they're in that I want to get some revenge type of atmosphere. If we get a Minnesota Aces playoff series, that's going to be spicy. Those are the teams that just feel like they have this. It's not just the stardom. There's stars all over the league that can make a big impact in playoff games. For me, it's the continuity. It's what you have coming back that maybe got even better when you think of New York, when you think of Minnesota, when you think of Las Vegas. Gosh, we didn't touch on Phoenix a ton. For me, it's tough because they didn't have Copper against Seattle.
And
But
Copper's going to be out for a minute because of her knee. Right.
exactly.
So,
And it was that duo of, right now, it should be a trio, but it was a duo of Sabali and Thomas in the
yeah.
first of some elite numbers. So you get that trio back after seeing what the duo did with Sabali and Thomas. And it's like, okay, but then the question on Phoenix is the depth after that. That's
Right.
I have the same question about a Seattle. Yeah, it's interesting after that to try to go against those top three. In a final series, I want to go with a different pick than you. I guess I gotta, it's hard, but I guess I gotta go right now. Minnesota and New York after this opening weekend. Maybe it changes. Maybe I'm dropping a mic again, Karli, and maybe the Watch are in the playoffs because they are leading the standings as we speak.
I know they are leading the standings. I don't think anyone saw Washington going 2-0 to open up, which is just crazy. My gosh. And then as we're recording this, right near the very end, the Lynx are coming out with the dub over the Sparks. So Minnesota going 2-0.
Citron and Irifin did that opening game against Atlanta. And, that was against a pretty dynamic new duo there with Brittany Griner and Bree Jones. That's an all-star duo too. So it's a new look Atlanta team. We got a lot of new look teams that we got to feel out here.
That's very true. The rosters this year look incredibly different than what they've ever looked like in the past. So we have a very fun season. We only got 40 plus 40 plus more games to watch.
Keep adding more.
Very excited.
We love
Jason, thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait to have you on later on this season. We're going to watch a few more games, see what happens. But Jason, anything that you want to plug while we're here, where can they find you? And for Sky fans, we are blessed here in Chicago with an amazing broadcast team of Lisa Byington, Jason Ross Jr., Shimmy Miller, and then their new sideline reporter and Kalia Butler. You are blessed with a phenomenal broadcast team, and I hope you guys are well aware of it. So, but Jason, where can they find you? What do you want to plug? All that jazz.
Yeah. Well, socials, IG, Jason Ross Jr., Twitter, Jason Ross Jr. 1. And then, popping on, if you're watching a Sky game, I will be on the call every now and then. Like you said, we got another phenomenal play-by-play in Lisa Byington. She and I call the games, so you can catch us with our good friend Shimmy Miller and Kalia on your TVs this season. And we hope to bring you a fun product all year long. So catch us on the U.
Love it. Thank you so much, Jason. That's all we have on Courtside with Karli Bell this week. Hope to catch you next time on the sidelines.